All right, let me say a few words about a particular cultural contrast that I know about. In the course of these last couple of decades, I've had two opportunities to live in ECA countries. My family and I lived in Ukraine, in Kiev, in the early to mid-90s, and we lived in Turkey from 2000 to 2003. And these are two countries on opposite sides of the Black Sea. They're really quite close, and the capital cities are almost in a line that you could, if you were a bird, you could fly directly from one to the other quite easily. And this is an instance where it would be completely wrong to assume that because these two countries are located so close to one another and are of a similar size in a general sense and so on, that they have a cultural similarity that would be very deep. And that's absolutely not the case, and certainly it came as a big surprise to me. I found when we lived in Ukraine that it was very good when first establishing a professional relationship with somebody to start with strength, to start with business, to show that you are serious, you are capable, and you mean to get something done, and speak in a way that almost sounds a bit bullheaded in many other cultures. And then, having established that you were serious and had credentials and that you could work together, you could move into, in fact, some quite touching friendships and all sorts of opportunities where emotion and personal experience would feed into conversations. But it was better to start with a kind of bullheaded, I'm here, I'm tough, and I can do something for you mode of communication. Whereas in Turkey, that would be completely horrendous. In Turkey, it is much better to start with an opening meeting that is really to get to know one another, to establish decorum and have everybody understand where you are situated in your organization relative to an issue. It's really a courtesy visit to establish credentials and to be polite and to get to know one another a little bit, and possibly not even to discuss business other than to hint that there are a number of issues that you have in common and will want to explore mutually on another occasion. If you don't have the time for that, if you're on a short mission, you try and roll through this, but it was always a terrible idea to walk in sort of shooting from the hip. I'm here to discuss this issue and let's get down to business, roll up our sleeves, da-da-da. Absolutely wrong. I found that when I lived in Turkey, there was, apart from a general politeness and a wonderful dignity to business interactions, there was a very strong tradition of hospitality and of gift-giving. And it's very important to get this right, and actually quite difficult when you're from a completely different culture. But people are really willing to help you, and so this is another instance where just asking the local staff will solve any doubts you might have as to whether it would be appropriate to bring a small gift to an occasion or whether that would be a little over the top. It was very important to think through a few appropriate remarks to lead into a conversation. If that doesn't come naturally to you because of your cultural background, you needed to spend some time kind of thinking about that. Equally, in Ukraine, when I had been there for a while, I had complete comfort with all the things that in the first 6 months had struck me as being remarkably odd. The apparent bluntness and general unhappiness of certain modes of communication. I had the feeling I was in a culture full of very tough people. And in a way, that's true. I mean, in Ukraine, I found that people carry with them a history of so many things that nation has been through when it was under the Soviet Union, and people are very aware of the historical hurts and have become very stoic and are in fact very tough. But there is also an enormously emotional and generous and kind aspect to that culture, as there is to any other culture. It's just a question of when you access that and how you find it. And so we found it in different ways in Ukraine and Turkey, and in the end have really benefited from both of those experiences. I was speaking earlier about Azerbaijan. One of the things I find about Azerbaijan is it's, in a way, the perfect mixture of the culture that I got to know in Ukraine and the culture that I got to know in Turkey, and almost comes across as a bit schizophrenic because of that. So I hope that when you go to these countries you also have these very rich experiences, but that you have a shorter learning curve perhaps than I did in getting used to the initial modes of communication when you first walk in to do business.